What's going on, everybody? Asad Hashmali back with another episode on O-level economics. Today we're going to be talking about market failure. Now, what does market failure mean? From the name, the market has failed. And essentially what that means is that the forces of demand supply, which we did in a couple of classes ago, they are not working properly, they're not working efficiently enough. So what happens because of that? Some things that can happen because of that, actually everything that happens because of market failure is an externality. Now an externality is a new word, especially when you're studying economics, and what that means is a spillover. Let's say that, for example, I am driving and my car's exhaust really sucks and Faizan is right there. So there's an externality happening. That means that there's a spillover because Faizan's health is being affected by that at the same time. Yeah, but also not all externalities need to be negative, they can also be positive. For example, if my car's exhaust was actually emitting water, Faizan could be standing right there with a balti in his hand and be getting all that water in, and then he could drink that water, right? So that's a positive externality. It's a pretty stupid example, but kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Now, we've clarified what positive and negative externalities are, but what really causes it? Now, yeah, as I mentioned, some things, the consumption of some goods could have a negative effect on other people, or they could have a positive effect on other people. But at the same time, you could be consuming a good like a demerit good, which not only harms yourself, but also harms other people around you. For example, smoking. Smoking is a demerit good because even though you are consuming that carbon monoxide, you are also causing others to be hurt by passive smoking. Yeah, you've learned that in like 5th, 6th, 7th grade maybe. At the same time, you could be consuming a merit good. Now, merit goods are those goods which are good for you to be consuming and also to those around you. But that doesn't make sense. Why is the market failing if I'm consuming something which is good for myself and good for someone else? The reason why the market is failing is because that your consumption was not based on the forces of demand and supply. You were consuming it based on the inefficiencies of the forces of demand and supply, or the fact is that resources were not allocated for that product. Yeah, for example, if let's say Skittles were good for you somehow or the other, and cavities are going to make you stronger, but Skittles aren't bought. Skittles start growing in your house. No demand and supply occurred over there. There was no force of demand and supply happening over there, which led you to consume that good and then end up becoming stronger, better, faster, you know, all that, what Kanye said in his songs. And then at the same time, you could be consuming a public good. Now, public goods are those goods which essentially you get for free. And the issue that comes about is something called the free rider problem. Now, I've mentioned what the free rider problem is, but let's recap that a little bit. Now, public goods are those goods which the government needs to be providing because private firms and individuals won't provide them, such as street lights. Now, if you go on the road and you see a street light on, the person whose house is right behind that street light didn't put it up. The government did, because it's their responsibility to make sure that the streets are lit up and that electricity is being provided regularly. Same goes for the army and defense. You don't pay the general or the soldiers their salaries, but what you do is you are a citizen of the country and the government needs to protect you. Yeah. Now, what comes under market failure is something that is private costs and social costs. Now, there's a little layer to this as well. You can have a cost because market failure can happen because of good and bad reasons. At the same time, you have private costs and external costs. Now, private costs are those costs which are direct. What does that mean? For example, if I am driving my car, let's keep a use of a car in this example. If I drive my car, I am using that car, yeah, but how is that car running? Through fuel, through petrol, and that is coming through oil. So there's been a cost incurred that is of oil. Oil causes pollution, right? So me directly, by my consumption of the car, I'm leading to pollution in some way or the other. But then you have external costs, and those are those people around you, third parties, yeah? Me driving my car, I said the exhaust is going haywire, people are being contaminated with all that gas and everything. So again, they're third parties. But then social cost is the true cost incurred. So that means that it's the cost of the car that I'm driving, which means that there might be an insurance level that I'm paying along with the pollution, along with the tax of the car. Then there's also an external cost, which is the pollution to everyone else. My silencer could be messed up, so people are being hurt by the noises around me. So I incorporate all these different costs, and that comes into social cost, which is the true cost. But how do you find that? It's a simple equation. Private cost plus external cost is equal to social cost. Take a quick screenshot of this and then we'll move on to the next part. All right, hope you guys took a picture of that. Now, the next thing we're talking about are benefits. Yeah, private benefits, external benefits, social benefits. And in the same manner, you will be facing a direct involvement, an indirect involvement, and then a true, of course, like, culmination of everything. Culmination means like togetherness in a way. Now, private benefit are going to be like, for example, driving a car. I will benefit directly from the car because I'm getting from point A to point B. Social benefits or external benefits are going to be, for example, let's say I have a garden and I've made it look really nice, and there are a lot of trees in that garden, and someone with TB walks by, it's helping their lungs, they get more oxygen, it looks better, so other people are benefiting from that garden's existence. Now, social benefit again is going to be private benefit plus external benefit. So everyone, the direct consumer plus the external third parties who benefit from the consumption of that good as well. Why is it again a social, why is it related to market failure? Because just because it's doing something good, the consumer has the choice of whether or not to be consuming that. Yeah, again, not through the forces of demand and supply. Now, how does the government fix market failure? The government will fix it, of course, through government intervention, but there are certain tools that they use. One tool that they use is indirect taxes. Now, indirect taxes are those taxes which are levied on the consumption of goods and services, or on anything else which is not your income particularly. So you have something called GST, government sales tax. Whenever you go out to eat, you pay a tax on your food that you've eaten, because that's not being deducted from your income, that's being deducted from the consumption of something. Now, what happens is that if you look at this diagram right here, you have an equilibrium point where, demand and supply are intersecting right here at point E. But the government decides to increase taxes on some goods that might be bad for you. For example, cigarettes, yeah, they might move that over here to from S1 to S2 plus tax. Now, this parallel distance between the two curves is known as your tax. That is your tax altogether. All right, so that's how the government's going to do it. But then over here you come, and then this is what's going to happen is that let's say that through rules and regulations, the government might say that you're not allowed to be smoking cigarettes in certain places, or let's not even talk about the tax on cigarettes. But now, before in the UK, you could smoke cigarettes in hospitals as well, you could smoke cigarettes in schools as well, you can smoke cigarettes everywhere. But the government starts adding rules and restrictions which starts banning the consumption of cigarettes in many, many places, so automatically demand is going to decrease. Now, demand decreases, again, this price point has fallen and the quantity consumed has also fallen as well. Now, one form of corrective measure is also through education. The government could involve this in the curriculum of the school board and so on and so forth, and therefore they start fixing these issues of market failure. And the last form of government intervention is through subsidies. Now, what's going to happen over here is that if I say that there's a subsidy happening, I'll draw on the same diagram over here. The government, let's say we're at S1 and D, the government is going to say maybe give a subsidy which is going to increase the supply of certain goods, because remember that the cost of the reduction in the cost of production is going to help the producer and therefore increase the supply. Now, certain goods might need to be subsidized, for example, agricultural goods and so on and so forth. So when we see that the government is indeed benefiting, is actually motivating you to be consuming something, because now the prices are lower as well, the producers find it easier to make. Now, there are a couple of other topics which are left, like conserving and consuming resources. What should the private sector be doing? What should the public sector be doing? Now, these are short lessons. Unfortunately, I won't be getting into that, but that does not mean it's not an important part of the lesson. See you guys in the next one.